In the realm of defamation lawsuits, the Drake lawsuit over the Kendrick Lamar Not Like Us song was a huge one, and the implications of if Drake had won, what that would mean for rap battle culture, rap lyrics in general, but also music distributors who distribute music on behalf of rappers, it would have been huge. Now, as I was talking to my lawyers yesterday, I was like, guys, I'm pretty sure I saw that Drake had his entire lawsuit dismissed, and they were like, that can't be right, because remember, this wasn't just over defamation claims. There were other claims in this lawsuit as well. But it is the truth. And in fact, the entire lawsuit got kicked out. We're going to go through it. But look, what I'm wondering is the reality for Drake right now must be pretty wild. I mean, his label just won. His label still has to manage him for any new music that he needs to put out. What's that experience going to be like? Hey guys, let's talk about the marketing plan. What happens if Drake tries to diss his label now through the new music that he releases? And then of course, Universal should not retaliate against Drake, but they've racked up probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. So I don't know. Are they going to shelve him? So here's how we got here today. In January, Drake had filed this lawsuit against Universal, saying essentially, Universal, you fanned the flame of the defamation contained in the Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us song. By doing that, you put me in danger. I actually suffered all kinds of harms. My reputation is destroyed now, particularly as it relates to one statement about me being a Pedialyte in Kendrick Lamar's song. Now, in response to the complaint, Universal came back, filed what's called a motion to dismiss, asking the court to kick out the entire complaint, saying this was a diss track, and actually, court, there were a bunch of diss tracks. And so, since this was a hyperbolic rap battle where everything is kind of tongue-in-cheek, you can't take it seriously. This lawsuit is nonsense. Kick the whole thing out. Now, if you guys remember, we've been covering this since the beginning, and the last update had to do with all the discovery, and the discovery disputes that were happening. So one of them was that Drake was trying to get text messages and different things from the CEO himself of Universal. I suspect he thought maybe he would find text messages of scheming to pay for fake bots on Spotify. Yes, that was part of this lawsuit. Drake also had reportedly dumped about $75,000 into a private investigator because he was trying to locate this key witness who allegedly would have all this information about the stream botting that was done on the song. And then, if you guys remember, we covered this thing it's called an amicus brief. So a bunch of scholars and experts on rap lyrics got together from the University of California, and they actually sent the judge a brief, and they broke it down, and they're like, Judge, you cannot let Drake win this thing. And they're like, if you find it his way, it's dangerous for free speech, for freedom of expression, because quite frankly, Judge, rap lyrics are often fictionalized, even to the personas. They were like Eminem, Young Thug, 50 Cent. They have all embellished their personas, whereas 50 Cent talks about drugs and partying and drinking. 50 Cent himself has said, I don't do drugs or drink. I just said I was doing that stuff because it seemed to make the music sell better. Going on to be like, Judge, oftentimes there's exaggeration. There's one upmanship that's happening on who can be wittier, sometimes drawing on commonly known rumors about that particular artist. And the reason I bring this up because as I was going through the court's order, I wonder how influential ultimately this brief was on the court, because the court kind of said the same thing in its final order. So here's basically what the court said. The court goes, opinions are protected by the First Amendment as well as New York law. Statements of fact that cause harm that aren't true are likely defamation. And so how we make a determination of whether something is just your opinion, you're allowed to say your opinion, or if you are framing something as a statement of fact, this is how we make that determination. Starting with the forum, right? So how is this information delivered? So the court looked at, for example, if someone tweets or otherwise posts on X, is the average person going to think that this is the opinion of that person or that this is a statement of fact? So the court goes, oh, it's probably going to be perceived as an opinion. Versus, let's say it's a proper news publication. Well, if you're seeing something with journalistic kind of integrity around it, the average reader is going to likely believe what is written in that article to be actual facts. And the court goes on to be like, well, in this context, it was a diss track. And it wasn't just one diss track. In fact, Drake did the first diss track, then goaded Kendrick to respond. And so the court being the forum of this in a musical context, in a creative kind of expression way, this is likely likely to be perceived by the average listener as hyperbole, as exaggeration, as not real. But the court went on, said, all right, well, we also have to look at the surrounding circumstances, right? Context is key. And the court even pointed at like political battles and saying sometimes when these politicians are going back and forth and slinging insults, is the audience likely to believe that these are statement of facts, or is it exaggeration, hyperbole? And the court's saying it's likely going to be perceived as opinion, not statements of fact. And funny enough, the court makes the point is like Drake literally is asking the court to look at Not Like Us in a vacuum. Don't consider the other songs, don't consider anything else, literally just look at this one song. And the court goes, I'm not gonna do that. And it's because the surrounding circumstances of what this was as a rap battle, diss track championship, that needs to be considered. And then the court goes, the tone, the language, also super important. So the court says like profanity, trash talking, threats of violence, and again, hyperbolic language. Those are all really important things compared to, let's say, a Forbes article where you are reading it. It is properly structured and professional looking. And so within the framework of just the song itself, the court goes, these are all the factors that reasonably the court gets to consider. And based on this, we think the average listener is going to consider this to be an opinion, which is protected speech, versus a statement of fact, such as Drake being a Pedialyte. And in fact, the court even said that as it relates to the image showing Drake's house with allegedly over a dozen Pedialytes living there, is the average person going to see that and believe it to be true? Probably not. And so the court essentially said the context and these elements that we just considered extend to the cover art, they extend to the music video, but there's more. Remember, there were two other claims. It wasn't just for defamation. Drake additionally asserted second-degree harassment. And when we saw this in the complaint, we're like, that's weird. Isn't that a criminal statute? And that's exactly what the court said. In its order, it said this is a criminal harassment statute. There's no private right of action. So it's getting dismissed for just that reason. And what about the streaming fraud? You ask, well, there was a separate claim for that. And this was Drake's business law account. So basically he goes, I think Universal cooked the books, was in cahoots with Spotify to juice the numbers. It was paying influencers, it was paying commentators to talk about this and doing all this stuff, which sounded like Drake was just spilling the tea on how his label does marketing. But setting that aside, the court kicked out this claim as well, because the court goes, you're saying that there was essentially consumer fraud, but in order to assert this, you have to be one of the consumers. You're saying you weren't confused. And also, you're not showing that there was any harm. And oh yeah, by the way, you're just kind of pie in the sky making these assertions. And you haven't presented any evidence to allow the court to even have you move on past this. So for that reason, the court's going to kick out that claim as well. So then what happens from here? Well, Drake's attorneys have already put out a statement saying that he's going to appeal. There's never a 0 chance of success on an appeal, but I will say that his odds likely are not so great. This is a pretty wild one. I'm curious what you think. Drop a comment down below. I'm top music attorney, Miss Krystle.